Hello. In our last video, we reviewed the classification of resource and also bucketing of resource, grouping of resource. So this video, we are going to the next level. So in this series so far, we have got introduction to authorization, how to do the authorization, also classification of resources. Now, this time, this presentation is going to focus only on one resource type. We are not going to discuss a lot of resource types and get confused. We are only going to discuss only one resource type, that is an app. Okay, app security. Now, as you know, an app has got forms, pages, menus, reports, charts, so many things, right? They are all different. So I will have a dedicated session for pages or forms, right? This is only about the app, getting access to an app to see the pages. Are you able to see the pages on an app? So that security itself is complex. And by the end of this, you understand how many layers of security validations to be processed for an app security. So remember, this is specifically for one resource type only, app. Now, when I say something, if it doesn't make any sense, that means you have not seen the previous videos. I said the vocabulary in the previous videos. So this time I'm going to try to reduce the explanations and verbiage, try to get into this thing. Now, interestingly, this video, I am also going to demonstrate the real screenshots. These are screenshots from the real app. This is not mock-up screenshots, right? That way you understand it better. Moving forward, you know who you are. So these are the levels or layers of application security that I will be discussing today. So to start with, custom permissions. What it tells is when a user is given a permission really directly, right? Click on the user, give permission to an app, choose the permissions like grant or deny, save. That's it. It's as simple as that, right? Directly giving a user access to a app. You could do it differently. You could give add the user to a group, and the group has got access to the app. That's also an alternate approach. But I want to demonstrate how you give custom access to a particular resource. That's what we want to avoid maximum, right? That's why the whole reason why we discuss the grouping of the resources, grouping of the users. But that's a demonstration. And you will also see certain things like how do you grant it versus how do you deny it and what kind of accesses, things like that, right? We'll discuss that a little bit. And we will also discuss something called how does the app use this permission, right? The second one is active role identification. So every app is not necessarily having a role, right? It most of the times the app does not recognize a role. The app will just without actually recognizing roles, app can behave. Now, should an app behave without recognizing the role? All right, that's a discussion that needs deeper thoughts because I want to discuss something called micro front-end applications. Uh, with that context, I would argue we probably don't need roles as much as we think. Groups are good enough for us, right? Roles are assumed already, kind of. Anyway, now App type security is based on the type of the app you determine the security, but the classification security is much more complex based on several attributes of the app you are going to uh, decide the security. Now, on the right side top, app isolation security and trust and perimeter security. Now, these three sections are really not a user to app security, but it's an app to app security. Let's say you create a web page on app one. Can app two access that web page? What if the app two uh, app one has a security web page that's I call an asset? What if the app one does not want to share it with app two? What if app two does not trust app one, right? So these are the things that we are going to discuss. A perimeter of an app, the boundary of the app. How do you manage it? How do you control it? Right? This is a big deal because you create objects and in true object oriented world, an object is inherited. Most of you have seen class inheritance, right? Means people make a interface or a class and they implement or inherit from the class and create a subclass and use it. These are at code level. So my discussions are not at code level. My discussions are at object level or low code application level or a new generation modern application where you create a user interface for address updating address, and the same user interface can be reused by somebody else somewhere else. You create a business process and the same business process is reused by some other app, right? Serviceable UI, repeatable UI, or inheritable UI. There are several ways and approaches people do this, but the idea is that an asset owned by an application is not just the data or the documents only. The software, right, the processing, business processes or rules, they all are assets owned by the app. Is the app ready to share this with anybody else? Does the app trust anybody else? So those are the questions to be answered there. Now, at the bottom, we have something called a family-based security. So this is something that I discussed in the past. So you create a family of apps. So this is a more like a bucket, I would say. Create a family of apps, and the family of apps will decide whether you have access or not. For example, you create something called a manager app family. You define something called admin app family, right? Editors app family, and browsers app family. And if which family you belong to will decide your access. So this is basically grouping your apps in a special way, right? Data family based security is a little bit different because when you have data family based security, it has to also take care of search filtration, right? It's more complex. Now, data operation mode security is different. Now, what is data operation mode? Any application you log in, right? Some application is only read only. Then application can never give you any write only, and no matter which user you are, right? Now, there are some applications will allow only read only operation for you because you have only read only operation, right? For example, you are only a browser. You are not allowed to edit anything. You only see that application. No matter how you apply, you log in, how you try, you only all the fields will be always disabled for you, right? So that means the operation mode for you is automatically view, made as view for you. View only. You can only view. You cannot delete, you cannot edit anything. Now there is another scenario. A web page, you create a page. That page is can do edit as well as view. But depending on the view that you requested, I want a view mode. You say I want operation mode to be view. The page will give you information as a view, right? It will not give you edit permission at all. That's a pretty advanced technique. But if your operation mode is view, the page will do everything with the assumption that you can only do view. Even if you have edit access, that page or anything, any child object under the page should never consider your edit access. Completely ignored. Only read access is prevalent, right? So that's a concept there. Let's review it in detail. So before we get into how all the security layers are applied, what each and every security layer brings onto the table, we need to understand a different concept. It's app modeling. How do you model your apps? So as I said, Walmart is a big company. Walmart has hundreds of applications or an ecosystem like a Solana ecosystem or any other blockchain ecosystem. They all have several applications sitting on top of the blockchain or a ecosystem or a AWS infrastructure. Some apps are financial apps, some apps are inventory management, all types of apps, right? So how do you design your apps? That's that that's one of the important things that we should keep in our mind when we define security. In earlier world, we used to create a lot of big apps. So you log into an app is full of menu bars, menus and menu bars. And you click on a menu bar, another menu bar opens. Hundreds of features pumped into an app. An app is literally unmanageable. So the new world comes up with new concepts. So let me talk about those concepts here. So microservices architecture. So what it does is it's the microservices architecture is used by many companies in the world today. There are several patterns and variations of this architecture. Microsoft is strongly recommending this microservice architecture whenever you define application. So what it essentially means is when you have your application, right? A big application that deals with, let's say, inventory and warehouse, inventory and accounting. There are two major functionalities that you need to do with in your app. Earlier, we probably had a monolithic app with a inventory and accounting as two big menu options, and people deal with these two menu options and deal with that years ago, decades ago. Today, there are two apps. People have inventory app, people have the other accounting app as well. However, the inventory app itself has got so many menu options and it's so big. And it deals with so many components in the backend, right? And inventory app has got its own an API component. That's a different server, right? So vertically, or what do you call it? In the back end, they have something called layered architecture, UI layer, API layer, database layer, right? There are so many other layers in between. I just want to uh, make it simple because that's not the scope of this meeting. So the middle layer, the API layer, they say do not make huge services or API services. Instead, make smaller services. So previously, it used to be one API app. Now, what happens is essentially there are multiple apps, micro apps, I would say, at a API level, right? And there are a lot of, as I said, a lot of patents available. It's all, it's all already established. I personally like CQRS. That's uh, C sharp has an implementation. If you want to look it up. Um, but anyway, so you understand microservices, and if you are in the industry, probably the past 2 3 years, it's very common and everybody knows about it. I want to discuss something that people don't know it, right? It's a new, it's not so new, but it's a something that is due for adoption by people. So microservice is simple, right? It's segmenting the app logic into small micro apps or services, and each microservice can be managed separately, and they all call each other. That's it's a big spaghetti mess, and all those things still there. But modularization of the data and app, that became reality now. It's separated, isolated. That's a plus point of microservice architecture, right? The same thing happens here in the micro front-end architecture. That's the newest architecture. You can build your front-end in Angular, React, or any micro front-end compatible technology, and you can host all these apps together on the same window. You remember iframe, right? People used to create an app, put an app in iframe and create two tabs, and one tab is in both are in iframe, but people users never realize it's iframe. It's two apps, but they are not apps. They can talk to each other, they can communicate to each other. The iframe apps traditionally did not cannot talk too much because of browser security, and they can talk if they want. If you create a custom company low security browsers, they can communicate with each other, exchange data. But in the common architectures, you cannot. The iframes can't communicate between each other, right? Usually communicate through URLs. But that is a world that's changing. Now, the micro front-end architecture has got a hosting environment, an app, a micro front-end app that is registered in the system can talk to another app that is registered. Apps can be plugged in, plugged out, and one day when you open an app, you can create several host applications where you register one or two micro frontends with one app and 10 of them with other. So this will be plug and play app architecture. Now, this is trendy, and if you are not already using it in your corporation, shame on you. You should start. If you have not used it, please learn it today. Start using it. Move all your React application development, Angular application development into micro frontend. Single spa is my favorite. Single spa has got, it probably take 2 days to even implement it, and you can bring almost most of the React apps can be easily brought into single spa compatible. And once if it is single spa compatible, you don't have to worry about maintaining the host, maintaining this, all those things. It's much better. And I did this a year ago or something. Probably it's progressed much faster from there as well. But anyway, so micro front-end architecture is basically giving you an ability to convert every major menu item in your app into a micro app, right? Let's say you have an app that deals with the inventory, and you have a 200 menus or 100 menus. Common menus, you categorize them. For example, product type manager, right? Edit my product type, delete product type, those functionality, product category master, all those things move into a micro front application, put it somewhere, right? Similarly, you categorize it and create small application. So that's the way to go now, app modeling. And once you have a great app model, means you create multiple modules into 10 apps. Uh, app is, remember, app is just a terminology, a term. You are building the same software, same effort. It's just that it's just separated out. That's the only difference. You can always, software engineering, always remember, it's always really difficult to separate and always easy to merge. Anytime you want to merge something, it's easy. So if you are in doubt, should I separate it out or I keep it together? If possible, separate it out and build. No matter what, which software, which database, nothing, no matter what, if your question is between separated, start with separated, start with merge, start with separated. It will give you a lot of advantages. But once you start combined, you cannot separate it out. So create a app ecosystem framework. And even if your app consistently is going to give really similar features and cohesive features, still put it into 3 4 apps and use the micro front end architecture to make them together, right? So like make it reusable UI. And it also supports token based security, SSO, and all those things are pretty easy to do this as well. And you can also do React and Angular on the same host. Anyway, app modeling, this is why I explained this is not the scope of this project, this particular session, but people ask me, how is it possible? It's not possible, right? So I want to show you this is a highly trending technology in the app development world, and it is really possible. Just read about this, you will know it. Now, as I say, app modeling, there are 3 types of users usually, right? One is admin type of user, superpower. One is users with edit. One is users with the portal, browse data access. And you can subcategorize these into many more, right? A user with portal access, that means somebody, a CEO of the company, he may have ultimate access to everything in the world. He's like a president of a country, but he still cannot write anything into admin app because he doesn't have access to admin apps, right? A product category manager, edit screen. A CEO can never see that. And if he sees it, he shouldn't be a CEO. But he can see all the dashboards, all the reports in the company. And interestingly, he cannot do any edits, right? He does not need power. But he does not need edit power, but he needs to have broader level reach. Means he should be able to see every region, right? So the users that I talk about here, the portal users sound like browse data access, lowest access, but they may have broadest access, and more features to many things, which these event managers or event admins probably wouldn't have access to those, right? So this is an example for an event management software. We will get familiar with an event management software because one reason why I want to take event management software is it's pretty easy for everybody to understand because it's not a underwriting, and you know it's not complex. It's everybody has done weddings and marriages, baptisms, and all those things. So it's a pretty easy thing to understand. And also, I will demonstrate event management software with all these things too. So I said here, you have event admins, event manager, and event popper. And event admins, an event management project or a software, usually you can expect event category as a table, right? Event type as a table. So those are called master tables. So if you really look at an event category table, it never changes. In the beginning of the software, somebody say, "Oh, event. Let's add 10 events: engagement, wedding, event type, or event category. Event category is wedding, engagement, and like that." Somebody goes and add 10 events, right? 10 event types. That's it. Maybe 2 months later, somebody say, hey, can you add another event type? And at that time, this guy is searching where, how do I add? Because I completely forgot I used it a year ago, right? So event, so those applications are really important, because if you change the category, everything messes up. The whole business process, everything messes up. So it's highly important application, very rarely used application, but they are sitting somewhere, they're needed, right? They're never used on a transaction base. But the event manager every day updates the project status, update the event statistics, and all those things. So that has a high volume application, right? With the edit access and everything. So can we create an app with all the admin activities that are very rarely used, and it probably never used, and manager or portal users will never have access to, only event admins have got access to, and we create that admin application with all the basic functionalities, and all the master data management means, probably you will see around 10 menu items there, and create that as a micro front-end app, or forget micro front-end, I'm going to use micro app. That's the word I'm going to use, because micro front-end is very specific to a technology. Micro app is mine. Is so can we create a micro app with event admins, right? So then I asked the question, is it a good idea to separate apps based on security rather than responsibility, right? Shouldn't, if category is an important thing, product category is an important thing, product classification should be the name of the app rather than product uh, admin, right? Correct. Absolutely. If business, every app that you deal with should be in align with your business. IT should not force the business to get aligned with IT. Instead, IT should get aligned with business. IT systems should align with the business. We are here to solve the business problems, right? So any time when the question comes, should we align our thing with the business? Business means, okay, it's a no-brainer. At the same time, we also make sure that business, we also win. We don't compromise too much, because we make the business win today, but because of the wrong decision, business can fail tomorrow. Right? We should advise them. Right? So yes, start an app, object called product classification app, but start two apps. One is product classification admin app, and product classification main app, transactional app. So create two apps. Still, why we want to create things based on security is, you are separating the app based on the user base, right? Now, admin does not need to see a beautiful app. He doesn't care about the app's look and feel. He just cares about, it's only one user, two user. You never spend a single dime on beautification of the app, right? You just give him whatever is available. As long as he gets things done with the app, they fine. But when we give the same app to 500 people, and all these 500 people also have got access to the other features that this guy is using, then you cannot say this to him, because yeah, somebody would say, oh, I agree that your app is not used by anybody else, so it looks ugly, but still it's an app, and it's going to be, the cost of ownership and maintenance of your app will go up if you build everything together and give to everybody. So if you have a smaller user base, if you have an internal user base, separate something, separate it out, build something for them separately. And if you use microservices architecture, or micro front-end architecture, separating it out is not a pain, it's actually a blessing. Okay, start considering it that way. So as I said, possible separating an app based on the frequency of use, number of users, overlap of users, etc., rather than functionality alone. And the key principle I want to mention here is principle of least privilege, right? If 500 users don't need to access this admin app features, you are not going to even let them come near it, right? So when you give a feature in a app and create a login to somebody in that app and hide it, what you're doing is you're bringing somebody inside the gate and saying that you don't have access to this room, right? So always remember, one person comes inside the gate and stand inside the compound. It's less secure than he is standing outside the compound, right? So if you don't let him go inside the app, there's no, he's one layer far away from the system. So that's another reason why I want to categorize certain things based on security. But remember, this is a debate. And if you're a manager or a CEO of your company start this debate, or a business analyst start a debate like this and start discussing you in this topic, you probably want to give it away, right? Because you're not going to win it. And that's not probably a war that's worth fighting. But I just want you to get clarity on this thought. Sample apps. So we discuss everything, but unless we see a sample, you can't understand this. So maintain event categories and maintain event types, for example, and this is an admin app. A manager app is creating an event, registering guests, and even portal app is review dashboards, review reports, analyze the data, and no write permission, right? But really simple. You created three apps, and these three apps will help you go a long way. And each app will have different security setup. Each app will have different user group setup. Uh, and you say that, oh, I need to maintain three apps now. You had to maintain these things anyway before too. If you built a monolithic app also, you had to maintain this, because admin app, those menus will have to be customized. Now you don't have to even provide access to two menus separately. You provide access to one app separately. So your total cost of maintaining the app security came down, because you're maintaining security at an app level rather than menu level. Also remember, some time ago I discussed roles are needed or not, right? If you really look at this, you don't need roles in this, right? You know, it's already assumed. The guy who gets into the event admin app, they already assumed he's an event admin app. You don't have to clearly define a role or anything. You go in there, he gets access to everything. He's all set. Consider that as a positive. Okay. Now, zone and isolation. Now let's get into the specifics of the security of app. Let's start with zone. Trust levels, right? Now you have app A, and app C contains a web page. App A will fetch the web page and show to the user. Now remember, this app A and app C are UI apps. They are not micro front-end web services or anything. These are real applications which may have three layers within it, right? App C may have three layers within a UI layer, service layer, process layer, rules layer, data layer, five layers within it, right? Workflow layer, all those four or six layers with it. But all of them together is what we call app. All these apps together we call subsystem or system, right? When a system, so if I have a company, I have 100 apps. All these 100 apps together, I can call a subsystem, or I can call ecosystem, or I can call system. Now, sometimes when a system interacts with the outside system, theoretically, we have to call both subsystems, because a system cannot interact outside. It's like a universe. There's no boundary outside. Any system interacts with a system, become part of the system, right? Then both become subsystems. The one theory, not necessarily right, but anyway, trust levels. If you see here, app A can get the page from app C and serve to the user. What it says is app A trusts app C, and trust level of app A is high. And trust app B does not have any trust. App B does not trust anybody at all. If you create a web page in app B will display it. If you don't create a web page in app B will never display it, right? If you app B is not somebody who takes favors from anybody. He doesn't trust anybody. He's a loner, right? He doesn't. And what happens to loner people? They don't have a lot of things to offer. They don't want to deal with them. They don't want to deal with anybody else. They don't want to take anything from you. They are loners. So, but there are custom security levels: high, medium, low, no, custom. There are multiple zones there. That means you can have a low security and you can access certain things and you don't access certain things. For example, if you put an app B trust zone as low, and if you are a user but an anonymous user, he doesn't trust the anonymous user. He doesn't trust. I mean, he trusts anonymous user. He serves anonymous user. He does not trust other applications. But if the security is low, and if the user logged in user comes in, he probably will trust app C. But if the user is anonymous and the security trust is low, he will never trust AppC. So basically, there are a lot of combinations about trust zones from app to app. And remember, these trusts are going to protect both app C and app B, right? So other thing about this approach, right? Say app B is going to release some features to the users. Walmart has got 100 apps, and one of the apps, I have nothing to do with that. Walmart, I never saw Walmart. I don't know anything about Walmart application, so forgive me. I'm just giving a big company example. That's the only company that I saw very good at data and application. That's why I'm taking those examples. Um, and everybody knows Apple. And the companies I know, I am not allowed to take their names. Anyway, coming back to Appy, just imagine Appy is providing information to other companies, other people or customers, and it's ready to be released. At that time, IT security team comes and does a code review and release it up, right? At the time of code review, IT team realized that no, I cannot complete this code review with app B because app B is using certain things from app C. So that means I need to go and review app C as well. Now, if what if app B uses 10 other apps like that, right? Like microservices, right? Microservices today, it has a spaghetti architecture, a spaghetti system. People are struggling with that problem, right? One app, one is calling another service and all those things. So similarly, this could app we could be calling other several apps, and we're calling on several apps for resources and assets. The IT security needs to review everything, and the trust level, confidence level of the IT security is much lesser, right? Because there are too many dependencies. What if there's no dependency? You trust is none. They come there, look at the code, and say trust is none. Yeah, it's good to go, right? So that's one plus point of it, and there are many other. So this is how you do this. You go to the event manager. So I will give a demonstration of event manager. This is the app settings of event manager. You go to the app settings, go to app trust zone, and create a trust zone as medium. It's not high, give it a medium, or even make a use default value. Now, the moment you set this up, this is optional, purely optional. And if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. So if you put it as medium, then security zone is set as medium. And if you put it in none, it is an app that is standalone. It will never use anybody else's services, right? Any other app services. Remember, this is not a user to app relationship, it's an app to app relationship. Isolation level. Now, that's the other side of the story, right? One is a consumer, one is a provider, right? Oh, what did I do? Yeah, I think I didn't remove this thing here, container website, page one. But what happens here is app B takes the data isolation is high. App A cannot request any data from app B because app B says, no, I am not callable. I don't want to. I don't share. I am not a sharing guy. And app A don't get to display it. Now you know why you want this. So for example, you create a financial application and anybody can call the application and integrate their application into their application. If that becomes a easy peasy thing, people will start adding menus there and showing it. It becomes out of control. App B does not even know who all are calling me, right? Who all are showing my assets, right? They don't even know. So app B can just say isolate level, right? Now remember, if you have a form in app B, that form can be inherited by app A. If you have a menu item in app B, it can also be inherited by app A. So we are not only discussing about referencing, right? If there is a web page in app B, app A can, app C, app A can take the website data and show it to his users. What if there's a web page, there's a form, a search page. App A can inherit the search page, create a different search page and show it. Now, the idea of inheriting a UI object or a business rule object or a business service object is probably new to many people. Like many developers, people work for AWS and Microsoft, they are not used to those things. They are used to inheriting a class, but they are not used to the concept that I'm talking about. But I will demonstrate you how this is done using the system I'm talking about. Anyway, this is how you do it. You go to the app isolation level, choose whatever you want. Currently, this was nothing was chosen. Choose a use default value. If you don't have to choose anything, leave it unattended if you want. Permission-based authorization. So this is the one that I was talking about. You take one user and give specific access to the user. So you go to the security permissions, go to the permissions tab, and all other tabs, forget all other tabs, we'll discuss all of them. And you create choose custom security model for this app, and event manager is the app, custom security. Then you go and click on the permissions button at the bottom, right? When you click on the permissions, this page will come. And as you can see, the guy has Amy Jones is denied browse, given grant, read, write, and executor granted. Admin read is denied. I don't know why she can be denied browse and given read. That's not really possible. Conceptually possible, but technically possible, right? But anyway, she might not get any access because browse is denied, or she might get access. Who knows? Read is guest system user one has granted access, and if you see that right, none means uh, it's not denied, it's not granted, it's none. So what it means is it's unspecified. You choose users here. You can also click on the user groups and add user groups there. So how do you add a user here is just click on new button, add a user and give the access and he gets access. User group also the same way it can happen. See, you click on a new permission, look up here, pick up which user you want, choose the drop downs value and save. You're done with the permission setting. And user groups, you can also set access to user groups, really simple. And it's self-explanatory. Create a new user group here. And when you create a new user group, you pick up the user, grant, no grant, whatever you want to give it. Access is provided. So you click on this button here, user search group, user group, you get this group, and you enter the name, what users you want to give access to, event, click event, right? Because these are event based, event management based. You want to give event specific group. Search, choose whatever it is, select it, that then save. So you have seen how to provide simple data access, simple permissions to a user. This is a this is a feature that you see every application you go to, right? One way or the other. Now remember, in this, I we did a very elaborate technical access permit here, right? However, in a advanced world, on sometime later, once people are comfortable with this, we will change this to something, right? A checkbox saying that read access, write access, only two of them, based on entity, right? For example, this is an app. App does not have execute access or does not have custom access one, right? There are certain accesses are not needed for the app. So if we convert this into some checkboxes where users can just click it, things will be much easier for people to accomplish. But what happens is when you simplify the screen, the elaborate feature setting that is available here will be missed out. But I will definitely add those easy easy PC thingy soon, because that's gonna look uh, much simpler. But in this presentation, we need this. Anyway, classifying app and data. So the next step we discussed about, now so far we discussed several application level security layers. Third one is about how to classify apps and data, right? As I said, in the data point of view, we need to define data domains and data segments. Right? And app side, we define app domains and source apps. So app domains is set of apps. Source app is that from this app, the data is being created, right? That's what it says. And I explained this before, but at that time it was a bucket, right? Domain as a bucket. Now this time it's really specific to data, data domain, data segment, app domain, right? A group of apps collected together. These are real implementation. Earlier it was a concept. Now this is a real implementation. Now you saw how these things are existing now, but now how do we use this in our security? That's what we're going to discuss here, is perimeter security. So these are the items that you can use in a perimeter security: data domain, data segment, app domain, source app. We discussed all these things. Source app is the app from which the data is created. For example, when you create a user or a customer, you create from an app. That app is the source app of that record. Tenant, in your system, you may have multiple tenants. A tenant might deal with another tenant. So multiple tenant information is also exchanged between them, right? So that's being handled. Virtual tenant. Sometimes you are a tenant, means you are an account with a lot of customers. Each of your customer could be a tenant, means you are probably creating and hosting a web page, so website application. Means every website builder comes into your system is a virtual tenant, because you don't want to provide them a big computer. You provide him 1/10 of a computer or 1/100th of a computer. He's happy with that, and you're happy with that. So like multiple tenants on a single server, right? And they are called virtual tenant or subtenant or virtual accounts, virtual sub accounts, whatever you want to call. Users login status. Sometimes you want to permit security based on users status, on whether it's anonymous user or logged in. Sometimes you want to provide security based on user data. For example, user type is fossil or user type is something else. Sometimes you want to provide perimeter security based on data rules. You go to the database and find certain information, evaluate it and see, oh, I can't give you permission because of ABC reason. That's what we discussed in the very beginning about script, right? Rule based, right? Anyway, this is how you do this. You go to the perimeter restriction overview in the app settings, check enable the perimeter, create So, and if you see that the second menu here is perimeter restriction by app domain, right? You go there, so you get to this screen. This is a different screen. You choose what permission you want to provide based on the app, right? For example, you can choose app domain ABCD and you say, I want the user to be able to have admin access only if he's from this admin, app admin, right? So there are, let's say there are two app domains, the app domain 1 and app domain 2. App domain, if you are part of app domain 2, I will give you access, right? That's the way it's worked out. So what you do here is you create a admin access or admin access and choose app domain 2. Now, system will automatically recognize the app domain 2 and validate it and see if you are not app domain 2, you are not going to get access to this declined, right? Now, sometimes there are multiple app domains, right? 20 app domains, and 5 of them app domains have to be approved, and 15 are not approved. You remember that we discussed about bucketing. So that's where you use this processor group, perimeter app domain processor group, where this is a custom processor. Templates is available. All you need to do is plug in um, a query that will query a table in the backend, which will have a map and return multiple app domains and validate in approve. Too much security here, but that customization is sometimes needed. And if customization is not used, that means if none of these checkboxes are checked, it is not being engaged, right? The other one is by client account. The same thing. Client account is a tenant. In fact, it's a different word for tenant. The same thing. Tenant has got a process group. You can have multiple tenants. You define tenants, and if this is used, if data does not belong to you, if some belong to some other tenant, do not use it. And your application probably does not have a tenant, multiple tenants. You have only one tenant. You don't deal with other tenants, right? Most of the 99% of the tenants don't deal with other tenants. So you don't need this. Data domain. This is again the same concept, but you can choose a data domain here and set it up, or you can choose multiple data. Now remember, multiple data domain. You remember that I spoke about domain, the difference between zone and domain. The domain is overlapping. So if you are engaging domain, to start with, you can use this first option of choosing a data domain. But if you're engaging domain, eventually you will have to use the processor group and choose it. It's pretty easy to set up a processor group. I'll show you that in another demo. Data segment, same thing. In data segment, you don't need a processor group at all. We provided it just to see you are going to one time you decide, hey, I don't like this data. I want to convert the data segment into a bucket. It's easy. All you need to do is engage it here. It's not configurable. It needs a processor to be created. The processor, readily available processors will be available. So it's going to be much easier. Restriction by mode by logged in status. You know what it is, right? If user is not logged in, or user is logged in, that's the idea. So if you just enable it, it doesn't matter. If logged in, only logged in users will have access. Not logged in users will not have any access. That's the idea. But you can make it read. So let's say an anonymous user comes in. You want entire application to be read only. You come here, you enable this to read. That means all anonymous users will have read-only access, right? Isn't that cool? I mean, these are the things that bigger companies like AWS and Microsoft have done in the back end, and they never showed us. Okay, restriction mode by user data. This is interesting too. User data, remember. So the reason why specifically user data is already available in the context. It's already pulled by the application. But if it is not user data, if it's any other custom data, we need to use the processor group. And the reason why processor group is used, it needs some security, right? We cannot just execute it and get any data in the system. Some data is available, it's belong to certain domain. We cannot fetch it. So there are certain bypasses to be done on all these things. Custom rules. So the data, user data, and any data, right? Custom rules. This is also a processor if needed. So in this session, we reviewed several security factors and all these security items, how to filter data based on these security factors and protect the perimeter of an app. That means if app's perimeter is being defined, and remember this is only for app, we are going to talk about entities and forms and pages, menus. I promised you this is going to be a complex creature, the app security alone. Family of apps. So you may group a family of apps and define key roles for all of them, right? That's the idea. And the entire ecosystem, you can call it a single family, right? And add all the users into the families, and you can give it to them, give access, associate those families to these apps. And it's a click of a button, right? All you need to is, by default, there is a family. Take the default family, add all your users into those families, and system will automatically adjust everything. All you need to do is add the users into a particular group, and system will recognize everything. That's the beauty of it. You don't want to deal with so many, you don't want to give individual groups or users access to individual apps. You give access to a family of apps. Now, family of app and roles of app, there are two things which are going to confuse you a little bit in future, but really simply speaking, family of apps is the place to go. Every app, every family of apps needs 3 roles, right? With this family name. And system will identify these roles based on the name. So it's important that you don't make any spelling mistakes, right? So nature of the app will decide which role to take from the family. The family will have 3 roles, and based on the nature of the app will decide which role to pick up, right? However, you can also tell app to pick up this particular role anyway. And all these 3 roles will have 3 or 4 roles will have different access levels. Let's see an example. So in this case, event management app domain admins, event manager app editors, app viewers, event manager app browsers. These are the 4 user groups which are created by you in the backend, in the user groups, right? You go to the security system, create these 4 groups. Then come here, you can choose the drop down of admin user role and everything and pick up these roles and put it there. Or you can just type event management there. It will automatically add app admins, app editors, app viewers, app browsers into it, right? And you can just enable it. Now, security is in place. If you are an app admin, you get so individual roles. Based on your individual roles, you get it. And based on your what role you're part of, right? Based on that, it will also decide uh, your access level and operational model. That means if you have only viewer access, if you're an edit screen, you will be automatically converted into a viewer screen and show you that, right? That's the idea. Remember, this is for app family. Data family, it's going to be a bit different. Family of data. So in this case, the decision must be based on the nature of the data rather than the nature of the app, right? That's the difference here. But also the queries and all those things will also be different. So in this case, you see that wholesale data admins, wholesale data editors. So this is a data driven, right? It's not on the based on the app. Most of the times, you don't need this data family, but sometimes it's better to have this as an option, right? All you need to do is just provide the name of the family wholesale. Everything will be automatically picked up. But if you want to customize it, remove the name from there and choose individual roles from here, and it will take it from there. Now, so we covered family of apps and family of data. Now it's on app types. So you can make an app read only, right? That means the app is always read only. You can make a user as a read only. That means the user will always be read only, right? The app, whenever he experiences that app, any app he goes to, the app will be read only. Type of apps, there are a lot of ways a app is, for example, app type could be a media app, blockchain app, many things. Site type could be a website, content website. There are many types of apps available. It could be a crypto web app, D app, IPFS app, NFT app, security app, data service app, is public site, universal scope. All right. So there are several ways you can categorize this. But if you really look at two of them, one is public site, is universal scope, and universe scope. Um, and there is a security tab on the top. Ideally speaking, these three things should have been gone to the security. But security has got only two things. Is anonymous user is allowed for this app, and MetaMask is Web3, blockchain-based login and DID is allowed, enabled or not. In the app group, there is a group called local, region, world, district, universe. This is not typically used for security. This is used for cataloging purpose. Now, purpose is another important piece of security. And remember, the more and more you go, you're getting confused. Don't, because we are not going to engage in this. If when you see it's not checked, that means it's not used. But every app will have to use one or the other. That's why we are giving this feature here, right? So operation primary purpose is when you see this app, do you want to see this app as a view purpose, or do you want to see this app as a write app, read and write? And if you don't give anything, it's thinking you want to do it, read and write and admin, right? That's the only reason. Now, why we do this is sometimes when you show a form, the form is only for view. People are not supposed to edit it, right? So you can tell them this is only for view. And sometimes your text box, you can say primary purpose is only view. You can never edit it. So how do you tell? So read only is a different thing, right? We have read only attributes and enabled attributes for text boxes and all those things. But this is like a primary purpose of a form is being engaged. That means at all the menu items, text boxes, forms, check boxes, command buttons, everybody will understand it. There's a translation of this going in underneath, right? That's the idea. Then if you look at target purpose, that's a bit more complex. Let's say you have a a command button shown on a screen form, and that button is supposed to save something, right? Save it. The primary purpose of the button is not save. Primary purpose of the button is view, right? You are only viewing the button there. Can you view the button? You have the permission to view the button, then you view the button. But when you click on the button, the target is to save, right? That's the purpose. So is target is update. You want to distinguish these two things for a button or anything else. That's why we have the target purpose. It's not truly applicable for app, but there are objects which will inherit these apps, they can use it. That's the only reason why we keep it here. Target purpose based display. What it means is, if I am going to if I am in edit mode, don't show it, right? If I'm in a read only mode, don't show it. So you can determine, show the application based on the display mode or a purpose, the target purpose of the application. Now, mode of the application. So we went through purpose. Purpose is basically will drive if the application's purpose on the next action, right? Insert is the next action, or current action is purpose. Mode is different. Mode is more passive, right? It says, okay, I looked at the purpose, I looked at everything. I am thinking this application currently in the view mode. It's an on-demand calculation of everything. Now, if the application app is decided to be in a view mode, and that can happen two, three ways. One is the data operation will pick up from the purpose and find it out. The purpose is view. So that means I cannot allow edit. Or it can go to the settings here and say, the settings, all the settings are given, suggesting me it should be view. It can go to the roles and say role-based security and say, all the role-based security is telling me it is view. Family is telling me, family of roles is telling me it should be view. Everybody is telling me it's view. So I should only allow view, right? So from all these various purpose places, the data operation mode is derived as view. One is it view, the security underneath, everything will be using views, right? And everybody's purpose will also be changing automatically. That means if mode is changed to view mode, even if purpose is edit, you will not see the save button. But you can see the save button if somebody says show in the view mode is on, right? Then you see the save button. But for that, you need to pick up the save button and make a save in view mode. If these past two are a bit confusing, it can be confusing a little bit. Forget about it. Don't worry. We will revisit one more time later. This is the true role-based security, one of the main uh, items that we discuss. So you choose enabled the role-based security if you want, and you create an active role assessment method. There are two, three approaches. Choose standard one. Then what you do is you choose primary admin user roles for all of them, right? And you go to, so the user will go against all these groups and validate him. And if he's part of any of this group, for example, if he's part of admin group, he is admin. His role is admin, right? That role is returned back, and the role for that user in this app is admin. So the role derivation and what is your primary role, that's being recognized here. And once it is recognized, that will affect everything else. If the users decide he's in the viewer, the role model, the data operation mode that is asked is view. User says, I want to edit this screen and sending edit request. So the data operation, the requested data operation is edit. Data operation mode configuration is none, but it will go and check the role, and the role is in viewer. It will say, no, you don't have edit access. So I'm converting everything to view and giving you view access. That's how it works. Custom access evaluation process. This is interesting. Out of all these things, after all these things, you can create your own custom data level primary access check. That means whatever you want to write here, any data, anything that you want to pick up, uh, you pick it up. And remember, there are multiple groups. It's a processor group. You can add 10 groups under this, right? And I'll show you another video on the plugins, right? The processors on demand custom processors plugin. Scope, finally. So this is another security scope. You allow anonymous access, yes. is universal scope, right? Yes or no? What it means is if is universal scope is not truly applicable to an app, it's applicable to contents of an app. If web page is being accessed by somebody else, it can a web page can be local or universal. If it is local, it can only be used within this system. If it's universal, anybody can access it. So that's what it defines. But ecosystem scope means an app that is defined by somebody and defined by a user. Only that user can access that app. Nobody else. Or a virtual account. A virtual account is basically virtual tenant, or and anybody in the platform can access it. So that's what. This is basically the scope of the users who have got access to this app. Access evaluation. That's something that we want to discuss. So not all access denied are allowed. That means sometimes you don't get access. You get silently taken care of. Multi-stage evaluation means everything that we discussed about is staged, multiple stage. There is derivation-based item the evaluation that will give you granular permission. So basically, what you do here is you take a resource, check against perimeter, or check against its permissions access. If it's permissions access, it will give you a lot of information, right? Read only access, write only access, everything is given. But restriction based evaluation is basically everything is granted, everything is denied. For example, a perimeter check. If you are going to access something from a different app which is not going to share it, right? The isolation level is 0. That means that app will not give you anything. So it's either grant or deny. So so every evaluation stage, we calculate all those things and we create a consolidated app. And yeah, we don't inherit from app because app is top level. You can do a security check silently. That's what it means. Transpose permission. Now, this is an interesting topic about app. So just because you don't have access to browse or custom one, or read only, write only. So what does it mean? If for an app, when it's a read only, it's very understandable. But on a menu item, when you say read only, what does it mean, right? A menu item, there is no read only in a menu item. Menu item, there is no edit on a menu item. Menu item, you have click on it and view it, right? So read only makes sense. I mean, view, the access view makes sense to me. Give access to view a menu item, that makes sense. Give access to edit a menu item does not make any sense to me. If you want to change the menu settings, it's administration, right? But menu edit does not have any value as a, if you have a right access to a menu, that does not have a value, right? Similarly, certain execute access on a entity does not have any value. So you have to convert all the access permissions and transpose it into uh, to a, to a model that can be used by this menu, right? So that's a transpose permission transpose algorithms. So basically, from when you transpose from an app to a menu, or an entity to a menu, a form to a menu, it all uses different transposing techniques, right? Sometimes edit is not applicable. Sometimes if you have a execute permission, that has to be converted into a write permission, like that, right? So that's a transpose item. And uh, so that's a complex topic. We will discuss that in detail in one of the presentations. But today we reviewed the application permission a lot, and how to apply it's really simple. Once you get the access derived, you can notify the user saying you do not have access to this, or expose a queryable interface to share permissions info. That means you get it, but you don't show it to anybody. You silently hide it. But if somebody wants to query it and get the information on the permissions, like, hey, what happened, you can give a API to provide the permissions information. And other thing you can do is, if permission is denied on a object or a widget, it can inform its child widgets or child controls that, hey, permission is denied here. So it's notifying the other dependent objects. Tracing, there is an option to trace. So just enable to trace. Here, too many layers. Too many layers can often lead into complicated security maintenance, overhead, security loopholes, performance compromise. Obviously, I discussed all these things today. You don't want to engage all of it. You want to engage minimal. As I said, authorization requires less layers. Authentication requires more layers, right? So keep this minimal but necessary. What is necessary? Standard primary layer of protection, document expect exceptions. Many of these are simplify maintenance needs, choose combination of layers. Yes. So I think these are the challenges. Absence of security is never seen that easily, never seen that easily. Backdoors and loopholes are not seen until it is seen. Security penetration testing is the key. Okay, so we discussed almost a lot of advanced features of apps. 50% of them you understood, probably. Probably not your mistake. It's my mistake. I didn't explain it probably well. But each of them will do a live demo. Each of them will do a live scenario-based setup. Once you see that, you will have much more clarity on this, and that's going to bring a lot of uh, clarity. The next one I'm going to talk about is other types of objects, not just application, all other types of objects. Stay tuned. Thank you.